Here's a deep, detailed yet simple summary of equality in the Indian Constitution, like a complete note you could use for studying or teaching. Equality in the Indian Constitution, detailed summary. 1. Meaning of equality. Equality means no special treatment or privileges for any group in society. Every person, regardless of religion, castes, race, wealth or birthplace, must be treated fairly and given equal opportunities. The idea is that all citizens are equal partners in the nation's progress. 2. Preamble's assurance of equality. The preamble of India's constitution promises equality of status. Everyone is socially equal, no higher or lower people. Equality of opportunity. Everyone has a fair chance to succeed in education, jobs and life. This prevents a system where rich or powerful families always stay ahead, while the poor or lower castes stay behind. Dimensions of equality. Equality is not limited to one area, it is three-dimensional. A. Civic equality, fundamental rights. Civic equality ensures that in everyday life, people cannot be treated unfairly. The Constitution provides 5 major protections. Equality before law, Article 14. Everyone is equal in the eyes of law. Nobody is above the law, not even ministers or the Prime Minister. T. Prohibition of discrimination, Article 15. No person can be denied public places, services, education or benefits based on religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. Navakri, equality of opportunity in jobs, Article 16. All citizens must have equal chances to apply and be selected for public employment. Hiring is based on merit, not background. Abolition of untouchability, Article 17. The practice of untouchability which denied basic rights to certain castes is completely banned. Any act of untouchability is a punishable offence. V. Abolition of titles, Article 18. The state will not give aristocratic or royal titles that create social inequality. Awards like Bharat Ratna are allowed, but they are honours, not privileged titles. B. Political equality. Political equality ensures everyone can participate in democracy equally. Article 325. No citizen can be excluded from electoral rolls, voter lists because of religion, caste or sex. Article 326. Elections to Lok Sabha and state assemblies are based on adult suffrage. Every citizen 18 years or older can vote, irrespective of wealth or education. C. Economic equality. Economic equality ensures fair livelihood and wages. Directive Principles, Article 39. Men and women must have equal rights to earn a living. They must receive equal pay for equal work. 4. Purpose and need for equality. Before the Constitution, upper castes dominated society. Untouchables were denied basic rights. Women couldn't vote or access jobs. Poor had no access to education or power. The framers of the Constitution, like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, included these provisions to break centuries of discrimination and ensure fairness for future generations. 5. Importance of equality. Protects democracy. Ensures every vote and voice has equal value. Ends social injustice. Stops untouchability, royal privilege and discrimination. Encourages talent. Jobs and opportunities go to the most capable, not the most privileged. Promotes unity. Helps people of different religions and castes live peacefully together. In short, equality equals equal law, plus equal politics, equal economic chances. Civic equality, Articles 14 to 18. Political equality, Articles 325 to 326. Economic equality, Article 39. Directive Principles. It ensures fair treatment, fair chances, and fair pay for every citizen. Would you like me to now create a visual mind map or chart with branches for civic, political, economic equality to make this summary easy to revise and remember quickly? Here's your great, deep and detailed summary of fraternity in the simplest but most complete way possible. Meaning, fraternity means a feeling that all people are brothers and sisters, one big family, even if they are not blood related. It is about mutual respect, love and cooperation among citizens, no matter their religion, language, caste or region. Purpose: to create peaceful living in a country as large and diverse as India. To ensure people help each other and stay united, even with differences. To stop hatred, division and discrimination. How the Constitution promotes fraternity. 1. Single citizenship. Every Indian is only an Indian citizen, not separately a citizen of their state. This makes all Indians equal in rights and duties across the nation and builds unity. 2. Fundamental duties, Article 51A. It is the duty of every Indian to promote harmony and common brotherhood. We must rise above religious, language, regional and group differences. Fraternity in the Preamble. The Preamble says fraternity should guarantee 2 things. 1. Dignity of the individual. Every person must be treated with respect, without discrimination. 2. Unity and integrity of the nation. India must stay united and whole. The word integrity, added to the Preamble in 1976 by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment, shows the importance of keeping India undivided and strong. Everyday examples. People from different religions celebrating each other's festivals. Citizens from one state helping flood victims in another. Players from different regions wearing the same team jersey. Neighbors speaking different languages but helping each other in emergencies. What happens without fraternity? Society breaks into groups of us and them. Discrimination, hatred and violence increase. The nation's unity and peace are destroyed. Essence fraternity is the emotional glue that holds India together. It is about respecting everyone equally, helping others selflessly, celebrating differences rather than fighting over them, thinking of the whole country as one family. If you want, I can now condense this summary into a colourful 1-page chart so you can remember fraternity instantly at a glance. That would make revision super easy. Alright. Here's a great deep, detailed summary of everything in your text, in very simple words but with full detail so nothing is left out. Summary of the concept. 1. Dignity of the individual. The Constitution of India says every person is valuable and must be treated with respect. Dignity means you have self-worth. You should not be insulted, humiliated, or treated as less than others. This dignity is not just about feeling respected. It also means the government must make sure you have basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, freedom to live in a democratic system where you can choose leaders and have a voice. K.M. Munshi, one of the people who wrote the Constitution, said dignity means every person's personality and identity are sacred, valuable in such a way that no one should harm them. Nashna 2. How the Constitution protects this dignity. It does this in 3 ways. A. Fundamental rights. These are basic rights that protect your dignity and can be enforced in court. Examples: equality before law, no discrimination, freedom of speech, movement and profession, protection from exploitation, no child labour, no forced work, right to life with dignity, freedom of religion, protection of cultural and educational rights, right to go to court if your rights are violated. B. Directive principles of state policy. These are instructions to the government to work for people's welfare. They are not enforceable in court, but guide how the country should be run. Examples: provide education, reduce poverty, protect the environment, improve health services, give fair wages. C. Fundamental duties, Article 51A. These are responsibilities of every citizen. Respecting the Constitution, flag, and national anthem. Protecting India's freedom, unity, and wholeness. Rejecting customs that insult women's dignity, like dowry, harassment. Protecting the environment, promoting harmony among people of different backgrounds, helping in national defense if needed, preserving culture and encouraging education. 3. Unity and integrity of the nation. Unity. People across India from different religions, languages, castes and regions must feel like one family. Integrity. India's land and territory must stay whole. No part can break away. Article 1 calls India a union of states, which means states are part of India permanently. No state has the right to leave the country. This ensures India is indestructible. Nasha 4. Threats to unity and dignity. The Constitution works to remove problems that break the country apart, such as communalism, fights between religious groups, regionalism, giving more importance to one region over the whole nation. Casteism, discrimination based on caste. Linguism, fighting over languages. Secessionism, trying to break away from India. 5. Why this matters. Without dignity, people feel worthless and unsafe. Without unity, the country can be divided and weakened. Protecting both dignity and unity makes India strong, fair and peaceful. In short, the Constitution of India doesn't just give people rights, it promises that every person will be treated with respect and given the chance to live a good life in a united democratic country. It protects this through enforceable rights, guiding principles for the government, and duties for citizens. It also ensures that India stays united and safe from divisions. If you want, I can now give you a visual chart that shows these ideas in one page so you can remember them instantly. That would make revision super easy. Here's your great, deep, detailed summary in very simple words. Nothing complicated, no gaps, full clarity. Summary. Significance of the Preamble. 1. What the Preamble is. The Preamble is the opening paragraph of the Indian Constitution. It tells us the main ideas, goals, and values on which the Constitution is built. Think of it as the introduction to a book, but here the book is the entire Constitution of India. It gives the basic philosophy, how the country should run and what it should stand for. 2. What it contains. Basic philosophy. The deep thinking and beliefs that form the foundation of the nation. Fundamental values. Political values. Democracy, equality, justice, liberty. Moral values. Respect, dignity, fairness. Spiritual, religious values. Harmony, tolerance, freedom of belief. It shows the dreams and goals of the people who wrote the Constitution, called the Constituent Assembly. 3. What leaders said about it. He was part of writing the Constitution. Said, the Preamble shows what we had been dreaming and hoping for before the Constitution was made. Another important member. Called the Preamble the horoscope of our sovereign democratic republic. Meaning, just like horoscope shows someone's future based on birth details, the Preamble shows the future direction of India. Pandit Thakurgava said the Preamble is the most precious part of the Constitution, the soul, life force of the Constitution, a key to understanding the Constitution, a jewel that makes the Constitution shine, a yardstick, measuring tool to check if the Constitution is being followed well. 4. Why the Preamble is important. It clearly tells what India stands for and what kind of nation it aims to be. It helps us interpret the rest of the Constitution. If there is confusion, we look at the Preamble for guidance. It reminds us of the dreams of the founders so we don't drift away from them. It is short but powerful, a small paragraph that holds the vision of the entire country. In short, the Preamble is like the heart and guiding light of the Indian Constitution. It sums up the values, dreams, and principles the country must follow, and acts as a constant reminder of the vision of India's founders. It is precious, meaningful, and central to understanding the whole Constitution. If you want, I can now make you a super simple chart showing exactly how these points connect, so you can remember them at a glance forever. That would make this 10 times easier to revise. Here's your great, deep, detailed summary, very clear, step by step, and easy to remember, but covering all the meaning from your passage. Deep, detailed summary. 1. Who praised the Preamble and why? Sir Ernest Barker, a famous English political thinker, admired the Indian Preamble for the wisdom of its writers. He called it the keynote of the Constitution, meaning it's the central guiding idea that sets the tone for everything else in the document. He was so impressed that he placed the Preamble at the very start of his own important book, Principles of Social and Political Theory, 1951. This shows the Preamble's values are respected internationally, not just in India. 2. What an Indian legal leader said. M. Hidayatullah, a former Chief Justice of India, compared the Preamble to the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Both express the big ideals a nation is built upon. But he said the Indian Preamble is more than a declaration, because it is part of the Constitution and shapes how the country is governed, while the U.S. Declaration is a historical statement, but not part of their law. 3. Why it's called the soul of the Constitution. The Preamble holds the spirit and purpose of the entire Constitution. It decides the pattern of India's political society, meaning the type of government, democratic, secular, republic, and the principles it follows, justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. It's like the DNA of the Constitution, everything else grows out of it. 4. A promise that is not easily changed. The Preamble contains a serious and firm national promise, solemn resolve, made by the people of India. Hidayatullah said only a revolution could truly change it, meaning it's meant to be stable and not casually altered. In reality, Parliament can amend the Constitution, but the Supreme Court has said the basic features reflected in the Preamble cannot be destroyed. 5. Practical role of the Preamble. For judges, helps interpret unclear laws in a way that matches the Constitution's goals. For lawmakers, reminds them to make laws that uphold the ideals in the Preamble. For citizens, acts as a constant reminder of the nation's promises so people can hold the government accountable. Condensed essence. The Preamble is the heart and guiding theme of India's constitution. It is admired globally by thinkers like Ernest Barker and nationally by leaders like M. Hidayatullah. It's more than a symbolic statement. It's a legal and moral compass that shapes the whole political system, expresses India's highest ideals, and contains a promise meant to endure for generations. If you want, I can now make you a short and long revision chart. One side just the keywords, the other side full meaning, so you can recall this instantly in exams. That would make this even easier to master. Alright, here's a great, deep and detailed summary of the passage you gave, broken into clear points so it's easy to digest, but still covers every important detail. Detailed summary. Preamble as part of the Constitution. 1. The main question, controversy. There has long been an argument about whether the Preamble is actually part of the Indian Constitution or just an introduction. Why it matters. If it is part, it has the same legal force as the Constitution's other provisions. If it is not part, it is only a guiding tool, useful for interpretation but not enforceable on its own. Number 2. The Berabari Union case, 1960. This case went to the Supreme Court of India, and it became a key moment in deciding the role of the Preamble. The court said, 1. The Preamble shows the general purposes of the Constitution. It explains the big goals behind the rules: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. 2. The Preamble is a key to the minds of the framers. It reveals what the people who wrote the Constitution were thinking and aiming for. 3. How the Preamble can be used. If any article or provision in the Constitution is unclear or can have more than one meaning, judges may look at the objectives written in the Preamble to help choose the correct meaning. Example, if a rule about freedom of speech is vague, the Preamble's mention of liberty of thought and expression can guide judges to interpret it in a way that protects freedom. 4. The 1960 Supreme Court's final opinion. Even though the court accepted that the Preamble is important and useful for interpretation, it specifically ruled in 1960 that the Preamble is not a part of the Constitution. Meaning, the Preamble itself cannot be enforced as law. It cannot override or replace the clear wording of the Constitution. It is only a guiding tool for understanding the Constitution's spirit. 5. Key takeaways from the 1960 view. Role. The Preamble is an aid to interpretation, not a source of independent legal rights. Limitations. Cannot be used to strike down a law if the law clearly follows the Constitution's text. Cannot create new rights or powers that are not already in the Constitution. 6. Later development, not in 1960 judgment, but important for context. In 1973, in the Kesavananda Bharati case, the Supreme Court reversed the 1960 position and declared that the Preamble is part of the Constitution. It also became a guide to identify the Constitution's basic structure, the core principles that cannot be destroyed by amendments. Shash! One-line essence. In 1960, the Supreme Court said the Preamble is a useful guide to understand the Constitution's spirit, but is not legally part of it. Only later, in 1973, did the court decide it actually is part of the Constitution. If you want, I can now give you a visual chart showing 1960, not part, 1973, part, with arrows showing how the role of the Preamble grew over time. That will make it stick in memory permanently. Great, deep, detailed summary, in the simplest words. Short version. In 1973, Kesavananda Bharati, the Supreme Court changed its earlier view and said the Preamble is part of the Constitution. Later cases, for example, LIC of India, 1995, confirmed this. The Constituent Assembly itself adopted the Preamble after finishing the rest of the Constitution. They voted that the Preamble stands part of the Constitution. Because of this, the preamble is treated as an essential guide to what the Constitution means and helps protect the Constitution's core features. Line-by-line meaning and why it matters. 1. Kesavananda Bharati, 1973. Court rejected earlier opinion and held preamble is part. Plain meaning. The highest court changed its mind. From 1973 onward, the preamble is treated as one of the Constitution's parts, not just an introduction. Why that matters? The preamble now carries legal weight in how judges read the Constitution. 2. Preamble is of extreme importance. The Constitution should be read in light of its grand and noble vision. Plain meaning, the preamble states the Constitution's big goals: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Judges must keep these goals in mind when deciding what the Constitution's rules mean. Simple example. If a law is confusing about freedom, judges should pick the meaning that best fits liberty in the preamble. 3. Lick of India, 1995, also held preamble is integral. Plain meaning, later courts repeated and confirmed the preamble is essential and cannot be treated as a mere extra or ornament. 4. Preamble was enacted by the Constituent Assembly, but after the rest of the Constitution. Plain meaning, the framers passed the whole Constitution first, and then agreed the preamble. They did this on purpose so the preamble would match what they had written. 5. Inserted at the end to ensure conformity with the adopted Constitution. Plain meaning, they wrote the preamble last so it would accurately state the purpose and spirit of the finished Constitution, like writing a summary after completing a report. 6. President of the Constituent Assembly asked, "Preamble stands part of the Constitution." The motion was adopted. Plain meaning, the Assembly voted and agreed that the preamble would be part of the Constitution. This shows the framers intended it to have status within the document. 7. Hence the Supreme Court's current opinion matches the founders' intent. Plain meaning, the court's view that the preamble is part of the Constitution lines up with what the people who made the Constitution wanted. Deeper legal significance. Simple explanation. Interpretive power. Because the preamble is part of the Constitution, courts use it to interpret ambiguous provisions. They look for meanings that fit the preamble's values. Basic structure protection. Kesavananda introduced the idea that there are core features of the Constitution, the basic structure, which Parliament cannot destroy by amendment. The preamble helps identify and defend those core features like democracy, rule of law, fundamental rights. Limits on amendment. Parliament cannot amend the Constitution in a way that destroys its basic structure. The preamble's words and spirit are used as evidence of what that basic structure is. Not absolute text override. Even though the preamble is part of the Constitution, it does not automatically replace words of a specific article. If a constitutional provision is clear, that text controls. The preamble helps when the text is unclear or when assessing the effect of amendments. Practical effects, what changes for ordinary people and government. For judges, they interpret unclear laws in a way that supports the preamble's goals: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. For Parliament, it cannot pass amendments that remove essential features like democratic elections or fundamental rights protected by the basic structure doctrine. For citizens, the preamble becomes a symbolic and legal statement of the country's promises. Courts can use it to safeguard those promises. Short timeline, easy to remember. 1960, Berubari. Court said preamble is not part, useful guide only. 1973, Kesavananda Bharati. Court reversed. Preamble is part, basic structure idea appears. 1980, Minerva Mills. Important follow-up, reinforced limits on amending power and basic structure. 1995, Lick of India. Confirmed preamble is integral. One-line takeaways, memorize these. 1. The preamble is the Constitution's mission statement, now legally part of the Constitution. 2. It guides judges to interpret the Constitution in line with its founding values. 3. It helps protect the Constitution's unchangeable core, basic structure, from destructive amendments. 4. The Constituent Assembly intended the preamble to be part of the Constitution. They voted for it after writing the rest. If you want, I can now turn this into a single-page flowchart or a 4-panel comic that shows Berubari 1960, Kesavananda 1973, Minerva Lelici 1980-1995, and the exact legal consequences. Which visual would help you remember best? All right, here's a deep, detailed but crystal clear summary of the amenability of the preamble topic, so you understand it from every angle without getting lost. Detailed summary. 1. Background. The preamble is the introduction to the Constitution of India. It sets out the core values and objectives of the Constitution, things like justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. The question arose, can this preamble be amended, changed, under Article 368 of the Constitution, or is it fixed forever? 2. First major debate. The issue first came before the Supreme Court in the famous Kesavananda Bharati case, 1973. Earlier, in the Berubari Union case, 1960, the Supreme Court had hinted that the preamble was not part of the Constitution. This meant, if you followed that earlier view, the preamble wasn't something Parliament could amend directly. 3. Arguments in Kesavananda Bharati. Petitioners claim the preamble is not part of the Constitution, so it can't be amended. Even if it could be amended, Article 368, the amendment rule, cannot be used to destroy the basic elements or fundamental features of the Constitution. These basic features are found in the preamble and must remain untouched. Core idea of petitioners' side, the Constitution has a soul, the preamble. You can make changes to many parts of the Constitution, but not to its soul. 4. Supreme Court's ruling. Reversal of earlier opinion. The court said its earlier understanding in the Berubari case was wrong. The preamble is part of the Constitution. On amending power, the court decided the preamble can be amended using Article 368. However, and this is critical, you cannot use amendments to destroy or change the basic features of the Constitution. This created what is now called the Basic Structure Doctrine. Parliament's amendment powers are wide, but not unlimited. 5. What is the Basic Structure Doctrine? It means certain fundamental principles of the Constitution cannot be removed or destroyed by amendment. Examples of basic features: supremacy of the Constitution, rule of law, principles like justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, secularism, federalism, judicial review, democracy. These values are reflected in the preamble. That's why they can't be amended in a way that removes or contradicts them. 6. Actual amendment to the preamble. So far, the preamble has been amended only once, in 1970's 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. This amendment added the words socialist and secular before democratic republic, also inserted the word integrity alongside unity. The text now says unity and integrity of the nation. The Supreme Court held this amendment was valid because it did not destroy the basic structure. Instead, it reinforced existing ideals. 7. Importance of the decision. The Kesavananda case settled 2 key points. 1. The preamble is a part of the Constitution. 2. It can be amended, but basic features, including those in the preamble, cannot be changed in a way that damages the Constitution's core identity. This ensures Parliament can make the Constitution adapt over time, without risking the loss of its essential principles. 8. Why this matters. Without the basic structure limitation, a ruling majority in Parliament could remove democracy, end fundamental rights, give unlimited power to one leader, remove equality before law. The doctrine acts like a safety lock to prevent such dangers. Final condensed version. The preamble, once thought to be just an introduction, was declared by the Supreme Court in the Kesavananda Bharati case, 1973, to be an integral part of the Constitution. It can be amended under Article 368, but not in a way that damages the basic structure, the fundamental principles that define India's constitutional identity. This principle, called the Basic Structure Doctrine, ensures that core values like justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, secularism and democracy remain safe from harmful amendments. Only one change to the preamble has occurred, in 1976 adding socialist, secular and integrity, and it was upheld as valid because it strengthened, rather than harmed, the Constitution's spirit. If you want, I can now make you a visual chart showing pre-1973 view, 1973 Kesavananda decision, 1976 amendment, present-day rule. That will let you see the whole flow in one glance. Would you like me to make that? Here's a great, deep, detailed summary of what you gave me, written in the simplest, clearest way possible, so that even someone hearing it for the first time can fully understand. Summary 1. The Objective Resolution. The first step toward the Preamble. On the 13th of December 1946, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru stood in the Constituent Assembly, the group of leaders who were writing India's constitution, and introduced something called the Objective Resolution. This was basically a formal plan or statement of goals. It explained what the makers of the Constitution wanted India to stand for. It talked about freedom, equality, justice, and how India would be run after independence. After discussions on the 22nd of January 1947, the members adopted this resolution. This objective resolution later became the main source and foundation for writing the Preamble. The Preamble is like the opening paragraph of the Constitution that tells the purpose and spirit of the whole document. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment, adding new words. Almost 30 years later, in 1976, during Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's government, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act was passed. This amendment changed the preamble by adding 3 new words. 1. Socialist, meaning the government will work to reduce the gap between rich and poor and try to ensure fairness in wealth and opportunities. 2. Secular, meaning the government will not favour any religion. All religions will be treated equally. 3. Integrity, meaning keeping the country united, strong and together as one nation. These words were added to make the preamble more complete and clear about India's identity and values. In short, 1946 to 47, Nehru's objective resolution equals the blueprint for the preamble. 1976, 42nd Amendment added the words socialist, secular and integrity to the preamble. If you want, I can also make you a visual story or comic strip style chart showing how the objective resolution turned into the preamble and how the 42nd Amendment changed it. That would make this even easier to remember. Nice. Here's a detailed but very simple summary you can read to anyone. I'll keep sentences short, use plain words, give tiny examples, and finish with a clear timeline and the most important takeaways. One-line summary. The preamble is India's mission statement describing what the nation wants to be. Courts now treat it as part of the Constitution and use it to protect the Constitution's basic identity. Parliament can change the Constitution, but it cannot destroy those basic features. Number 1. Origin. How the preamble came to be. Objective resolution, 13th of Deccan 1946. Jawaharlal Nehru proposed a short statement of the goals India should have after independence. Example, like a school founder writing, "We will be fair, teach everyone, and never favour a religion." Adopted by Constituent Assembly, 22nd of Jan 1947, the Assembly agreed to those goals. These goals became the preamble, the short paragraph at the start of the Constitution that summarises its soul and aims. Constitution came into force 26th of Jan 1950. Number 2, what the preamble says, plain words. It calls India sovereign, independent, socialist, aims at social economic fairness, secular, no state religion, democratic, people rule, republic, no hereditary king. It promises to secure to all citizens justice, social, economic, political, liberty, thought, expression, belief, equality and fraternity, brotherhood, dignity, unity. 3. The big legal question. Is the preamble part of the Constitution? And if so, can Parliament amend it? Courts answered these questions over time through key cases. 4. Key court cases. Simple story, holdings and tiny examples. Berabara Union 1960. What the court said then, the preamble was not treated as a legal part of the Constitution for certain purposes. Why it matters. This was the early view that was later changed. Golaknath v. Punjab, 1967. What happened? Case about whether Parliament could take away fundamental rights by amendment. What the court said. The court protected fundamental rights strongly. Judges described the preamble's spirit as guiding the Constitution. Tiny example. Court said you can't use amendment power to quietly remove basic freedoms. Kesavananda Bharati v. State of Kerala 1973. The landmark. What the court decided. 1. The preamble is a part of the Constitution. 2. Parliament can amend the Constitution using Article 368. 3. But Parliament cannot change the basic structure, the Constitution's essential identity. This is the basic structure doctrine. What basic structure means: things like democracy, rule of law, separation of powers, judicial review, federalism, secularism, unity and integrity, and fundamental rights, in essence. Tiny example: Parliament can change a tax rule, but it cannot remove elections or judicial review. Minerva Mills, 1980, reinforced the basic structure rule. The court struck down parts of the 42nd Amendment that tried to give Parliament excessive power and remove judicial checks. S.R. Bommai v. Union of India, 1994. What it added: confirmed secularism as part of the basic structure and used the preamble to limit misuse of central powers, like dismissing state governments for political reasons. Tiny example: if a state government acts to favour one religion, the central government cannot simply dismiss it without good constitutional reasons. Courts will check. Number 5. The 42nd Amendment, 1976. What? Nice. Let's go very deep, but keep every sentence super simple. I'll explain each idea you gave, one by one, with plain language meaning, tiny examples, and the legal importance. No jargon. Ready? Here we go. Quick one-line summary. The preamble states India's big goals and spirit. You can't sue someone directly under the preamble. It's non-justiciable. But courts read it as the Constitution's soul and use it to explain and protect the rest of the law. Meanwhile, Article 32, the right to go to court for rights, is the constitutional lifeline. Ambedkar called it the heart and soul because it lets rights actually be enforced. 1. It is non-justiciable in nature. Plain meaning, you cannot go to court asking the judge to enforce the preamble alone. Why? The preamble is a statement of aims and ideas, not a rule that creates a private legal right by itself. Example: if the preamble says we want equality, you can't file a case that says the preamble was broken and expect a remedy. You must use specific enforceable rights or laws like equality provisions in the Constitution. Legal effect: non-justiciable equals not directly enforceable, but still useful for interpreting enforceable provisions. It talks about the freedom of faith, belief, worship, expression, and thought. Plain meaning: the preamble promises freedom of religion, of opinion, speech, and conscience as part of the nation's ideals. Tiny example: you can follow any religion, change your religion, worship how you like, speak your views, and form your own thoughts. How this matters legally: those freedoms also appear as fundamental rights, which are enforceable. So the preamble states the ideal, the articles give the legal power. It also ensures the dignity and equal opportunities to all. Plain meaning: the preamble says everyone must be treated with respect and have fair chances in life. Tiny example: 2 students from different backgrounds should get equal chances to apply for a scholarship. Legal echo: dignity is tied to the right to life and personal liberty. Equal opportunity is reflected in equality clauses and welfare duties. The preamble states the goal. Specific articles make it real. 4. It is called the soul of the Constitution. Plain meaning: the preamble gives the spirit and purpose of the whole Constitution, the reason it exists. Simple analogy: if the Constitution is a book, the preamble is the book's purpose statement. If the Constitution is a body, the preamble is its soul. Why judges care? When a clause is unclear, judges look at the preamble to decide what the framers really intended. Number 5. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar called the right to constitutional remedies, Article 32, as heart and soul of the Constitution. Plain meaning of Article 32: if your fundamental rights are violated, you can go to the Supreme Court and ask for protection. Why Ambedkar called it heart and soul? Rights are useless without a way to enforce them. Article 32 is the tool that makes rights meaningful. Example: if someone's right to speech is illegally restricted, Article 32 lets them ask the Supreme Court to restore that right. Number 6. K.M. Munshi called it the political horoscope. Plain meaning: the preamble predicts or shows the political direction India will follow, its future character. Tiny example: like a horoscope outlines future traits, the preamble outlines what the nation aims to become politically: democratic, secular, etc. Number 7. Subhash Kashyap: if Constitution is body, then preamble is soul. If Constitution is building, then preamble is foundation stone. Plain meaning: 2 images to understand the preamble. As a soul, it gives meaning and life. As a foundation stone, it is the base on which the structure, laws, policies should stand. Why both images matter: the preamble both inspires soul and stabilizes foundation, interpretation, and lawmaking. Number 8. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that the Constitution is a pious paper. Plain meaning. Ambedkar treated the Constitution as sacred and deeply important, not merely a technical document, but a moral guide that must be respected. Why that matters: it explains the careful, reverent way judges and citizens often treat constitutional values. How courts treat the tension: non-justiciable, preamble versus justiciable. Article 32, preamble equals not directly enforceable, non-justiciable. Article 32 equals directly enforceable, justiciable remedy to protect rights. But courts do treat the preamble as part of the Constitution's identity. They use it to interpret unclear laws in a way that matches constitutional values, decide if a constitutional amendment or law destroys the Constitution's core, the basic structure. Short example of use. If a law appears to favor religion, the court will read the preamble's secular ideal to decide whether the law fits the Constitution. Why this mixed role is useful: plain reasons. 1. Guidance without chaos. The preamble tells judges what the Constitution aims for, but because it's not directly enforceable, courts don't turn broad ideals into vague orders. They still rely on specific articles for remedies. 2. Protecting core values. Using the preamble helps courts stop changes that would wipe out democracy, secularism, or basic rights. 3. Keeping rights effective. Article 32 gives citizens a way to enforce rights that are guided by those preamble ideals. Very short examples to lock it in. You cannot sue someone saying the preamble promised equality and get relief. You must use equality provisions in the Constitution. If a law tries to privilege one religion, the court looks at the preamble's secular promise and can strike down the law by reference to enforceable articles. If Parliament tried to remove free elections, the court could declare that amendment void because it harms the Constitution's basic structure, a concept courts read from the preamble and text. Final takeaways, easy to remember. Preamble equals soul, mission of India's Constitution, big goals and values. Non-justiciable, you can't sue using the preamble alone. Article 32 equals heart. It lets people go to court to enforce rights. Courts use both, the preamble for purpose and Article 32 for action. Result: the preamble shapes meaning. The Constitution's enforceable parts and courts make it effective. Want this turned into a one-page printable cheat sheet, a 4-panel comic that tells the story, or a word-by-word annotated preamble, each phrase explained in one line? Tell me which, and I'll make it simple and pretty.